Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another magical evening of OPSE Hearthstone here on the Saints Gaming channel. My name, as always, is Shadi Zeddy Henna, and alongside me, as always, is Mr. Danners on the broadcast desk tonight. Danners, how are you feeling about tonight's game?
Well, boy, this has the chance to be a rather interesting one, of course. Like, we're still about maybe mid to like three-quarters of the way through this OPSE season, but we have a bit of a curveball here as a new set of cards just dropped 2 hours ago, and OPSE is like, fair game, man. So we're going into it. That's
Absolutely.
crazy.
Yeah, Madness at Dark Moon Fair. It is madness, really, is what it is. There's a
Appropriate.
lot of a lot of new changes, a lot of new mechanics, a lot of new really awesome cards. I was taking a look through the card layout earlier before the cast, and a couple really interesting legendaries dropping for a lot of the classes here. I'm personally a big fan of the new Shaman Totem legendary Eyesore, the Grand Eyesore. That's going to be a really interesting card to see played, and I'm hoping somebody comes in with a cheeky little Totem Shaman deck. It was pretty good on ladder, but not a competitive staple to say the least. So it'd be really interesting to see what kind of decks people are bringing tonight. I'm really excited to see how this patch affects tonight's games.
Yeah, and then I'm looking at some of the decks now, and actually, never mind. Hang on a second. We'll look at the decks as we hop into game number one. We're just about to get started. Let's get into it. St. Clair with Shaman. This is one of the first times I feel like I've seen them pull out the Shaman. And then we have Rogue for the side of Ryerson University.
Yeah, this looks like the control shaman list. It's something we've played previously during the season, and I should mention that as well. That tonight you may be shocked to see me here on the caster's desk. I've moved myself. I've relocated myself from the player position to be here to support Mr. Danners on the casting desk tonight. So, gonna get some of that sneak peek inside action on these Hearthstone decks. This totem shaman, or this control shaman deck is really good at slowing the pace of the game, and it's really good into aggro lineups. So, looking to see how some of these new additions. It looks like there's already a new addition there on the right. I haven't seen this 5-drop card before, the Eye of Cthulhu. So there is a Cthulhu element to this desk. Oh, Danners, yes. We're going to get to see some Cthulhu action tonight.
Yeah, this is definitely. We're going to be learning alongside with yous here, whether it's a new mechanic or what. But we may have even some more as we draw along here. A one-drop weapon of sorts on the side of St. Clair, but this is weird. Like, I've never seen St. Clair pull out the Shaman. I feel like you were a fan of it. Don't I could be wrong though.
It's
Back in the
something
day,
we
but now did it get extra support other than that legendary?
it's something we've played previously during this season as a counter to aggressive lineup.
Okay.
I know Panther is a big fan of Shaman and control decks in general, so this was kind of a creation of his design. Um, but this particular list now, obviously, with some of the additions from the Madness at Dark Moon Fair, are going to be completely new to everybody participating in this. I'm sure even Ryerson was excited to see some Cthulhu coming their way. So I'm looking forward to seeing how these decks actually play out. And there we see the 6/6 Edwin drop on turn 2. That's a pretty hefty tempo play.
Really going to be putting the pressure on nice and quick here. The last thing you want to see is a 6/6 ready to start smashing your face right on turn 2. A solid play there for Ryerson. It's all going to be whether or not St. Clair has some sort of answer for this, even if it's just a taunt of some sort. I'm looking at their hand right now, other than one that's a little too expensive. The 4 mana. They might not have themselves an answer, and that's not what they're looking for.
We've got a freeze there on the Invocation of Frost there, which will keep Edwin at bay for at least yet another turn. It'll give them some time to establish the Sphere of Sapience here. But before we get too far into this game, I do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors as always. Big thank you to St. Clair College, the St. Clair SRC, St. Clair Alumni Association, Zuckerman School of Business and IT, PC Outlet, and Tim Hortons. Thank you all for supporting these events and allowing us to play these games and cast them for you right here on the Saints Gaming channel. Looking forward to some great Hearthstone action tonight.
Absolutely. Would not be able to do this without them, of course. And thank you for getting that in there as we're right around the corner here for another turn on the side of Ryerson, and the board pressure, even with the frozen card on the left, it's starting to slowly but surely start building up here.
The nice thing about top decking into that Sphere of Sapience is the ability to kind of guarantee strong draws as you progress throughout the game. The way that Sphere of Sapience works, if you aren't familiar with the weapon, is rather than providing damage like the traditional weapon does, each proc on its durability is consumed by allowing you to choose a new card to draw at the beginning of your turn. So rather than drawing into useless garbage that's not going to help you when you're really getting the heat turned on, you can have a little bit more say and control as to what you're going to be drawing into with this weapon. So on the Shaman deck, which is particularly control heavy, being able to kind of organize and systematically plan out your draws is a really big deal here. And being able to establish that taunt there on turn 4, slowing down the Edwin damage here, we have the Hagatha scheme in hand, and it's currently activated. This could just be a clear board wipe here for St. Clair, likely what they're going to play into. Because it's removing a significant amount of damage. It's looking like 14 damage almost, but actually going for the pieces of Cthulhu instead, which makes a lot more sense. It's a nice top deck there. Good way to kind of establish into our Cthulhu going into later turn.
Right now, as somebody who somewhat knew about it, but wasn't exactly too familiar with Cthulhu, from what I understand, some of these cards that do get played, like slowly but surely buff up Cthulhu to be a basically endgame raid boss, or is there something different to it that I'm not quite 100% sure of?
So the original Cthulhu, as you correctly mentioned, was buffed by other cards in your deck. So you would, for example, play like 2-drop, 3-drop units that would provide value to your Cthulhu later on. And the Cthulhu, the strength of the Cthulhu that you played later on would deal its damage randomly to random units and enemies and even the enemy face on board based on the amount that it was buffed. Now, Cthulhu the Shattered, as you assemble him into pieces, each card that you play will provide some certain damage benefit to the board, and once you've completely reassembled your Cthulhu, he'll deal a straight up 30 damage to everything on board and the enemy face. It's kind of insane.
Holy moly, now that could be devastating if allowed to get to such a crazy snowballed point here. And this may not be necessarily perfect right now, but this card's awesome. Let's turn everybody into Murlocs.
It's a great card. It actually has a lot of usage in this deck. It's a really good way of destroying a strong enemy board and reducing it to next to nothing. Murlocs obviously are quite low bearing units, typically low health, low damage as well, and they increase in strength as you add more of them. So if you're playing against someone that doesn't have access to Murloc, making Murlocs is really going to be no benefit to them. But here we have a Foxy Fraud, a new card as well from the new expansion here. Your next combo card this turn costs 2 less. Basically a free setup for Edwin, net 0 cost on that card. Really interesting setup card here for your combo utility.
And that one would have just come out in this new set?
Yeah, brand new addition. So you can see there, as it comes out as a 2-drop, it reduces the next combo card by 2, effectively meaning that as long as you have 2 mana, you can play your next combo card for free in that situation there. So there we had a really good setup into the Evil Miscreant. Good way to kind of refill our board here. And on the side of St. Clair, drawing into the Walking Fountain going into turn 8 is going to mean we're kind of chilling. We're in the clear here with a big, strong, heavy unit to put onto the board here as we move into the later stages of the game.
Where to go from here, however? Still sitting there with 7 mana. I can't bring the big guy out just yet, but I'm still keeping this in hand. Of course, 7 damage might be a little bit overkill for what's on the board right now. Where does St. Clair opt to take this?
I don't even hate the idea of just tapping and letting it happen. Like, you're taking 7 damage to face, but you have the Witch's Brew, you have the Hagatha scheme. I don't really see any kind of urgency in just removing what's currently threatening you on board. In fact, if you can bait the enemy team into overcommitting to their board and pretend like you don't have a response to it, it's a really good way to get more value, more bang for your buck here. It looks like they are considering the Earthquake here and holding the Hagatha scheme for a stronger response, but it looks like it is just going to be the totemic call here into the pass, not waiting, really looking to overcommit into a board of pretty much ineffective units here, and we can save some of those bigger responses for bigger threats down the road.
Gosh, I am an absolute bot. I did not realize that this actually just keeps getting stronger and stronger as the game goes on, but that is absolutely devastating.
Hagatha scheme is disgusting, and it's a great card to draw early on in the game, because if it sits in your hand for a significant period of time, there's basically no threat it can't handle once you hit a certain point, especially when combined with Plague of Murlocs. turn the enemy board into a bunch of Murlocs and blow them all up. It's a pretty sweet and sexy play.
I'll say that sounds rather satisfying, but we'll have to see as this game goes on. Healing Totem, only thing on the board here for St. Clair, but they are likely about to eat a bunch of damage to their face, but I wouldn't think that St. Clair would be worrying or anything just yet. Just biding their time, kinda.
Not at all. The way this deck functions primarily is you're doing your best to outlast the enemy team, wait for their deck to run out of steam, and win the game through burnout. You rely on resources such as the Witch's Brew, which is our 2-drop heal in hand. It's basically a full heal once you hit 10 mana, because it restores 4 health, and you can repeat it an infinite number of times as long as you have the mana to sustain it. So you burn them out of resources, you wait till they run out of threat, and you heal all the way back to full. So pretty solid place here for St. Clair, even though the health advantage is in the side of Ryerson University. There's not a major risk yet. That secret, though, that mage secret is a little intimidating, because if that's a counterspell, it's going to mean that whatever comes out next is going to really bite the dust here, and it looks like that's exactly what it is. So they break the counterspell with the Plague of Murlocs. Very nice call here from the St. Clair lineup into the Hagatha scheme for the board reset. And with a number of responses still left in hand, St. Clair's chilling.
Okay, definitely makes sense there. I didn't even realize that was the mage secret coming out there, the counter spell. So yeah, if they had played the damage spell first, it would have just completely gone to waste. Very wise of St. Clair to throw out the Murloc spell first, burn the counter, and was able to move forward as planned with that clear. But now we have somebody new on field, stealth and ready to strike.
Yeah, and Infiltrator Lillian. Lillian is one of the kind of, how could we say, commanders of the Scholarman's Academy set. She's a staple rogue card in a lot of aggro rogue lists because of the amount of damage that she's able to provide. We've seen some pretty interesting plays with this card, including even backstabbing your own Lillian just to cheat in a quick 4 damage burst. Probably not going to see that right now. Ryerson's pretty happy with this board state for them, but with a number of healing options available to St. Clair here, if we're able to break through these stealth units and threats, we can probably get ourselves in a little better position moving into turn 10 here. We have a number of options with the Walking Fountain, and also top decking into the Kronks, which means as soon as Galakrond comes online, Kronks is going to be a major threat here.
And then, like you're saying with the Witch's Brew, was able to get themselves pretty close to full after blowing all of their mana to make sure that they get themselves as topped off as possible, because it was getting kind of dangerous. They were down to 12 at one point, I do believe. But now there are a lot of, or a couple threats on board. Some additional death rattle effects possible as well, even if they do happen to get rid of the initial minions. But like you're saying, we do have some additional heavy hitters on the side of Saints, but can they get them out in time?
I think going into turn 10 here, we have a couple of options. It really depends on how hard Ryerson commits the board. Right now, Earthquake is looking real nice because it's got some good value here in clearing off almost this entire board, especially after committing the Witch's Brew previously. Definitely trying to dodge some big burst, as we've seen Rogue has insane burst damage when kind of left to its own devices. So removing some of these threats earlier could be a good call here for St. Clair. I believe that was the second Miscreant played as well, which means that the Lackey generation has kind of been put to a stop here for the Rogue player here. So setting up that Walking Fountain might be a little bit safer now, as it would be difficult for Ryerson to reestablish their board quite as quickly. So I suspect we're going to go into an Earthquake tap play here and hold the Poisonous Weapon as a late game removal. There is also a line of obviously just playing the Walking Fountain, clearing off some of these big boys, and moving into a lifesteal / removal threat here as well.
Yeah, Walking Fountain in hand. Are they going to just try and fire on the face, or what are they going to do? No, they are actually going to go for the minions, like you said, so right on target.
Yeah. With the rush unit obviously on the Walking Fountain, it has the ability to charge into the enemy board, but not the enemy face. Limited charge units available now as kind of these new expansions release. I believe the only one that really sees play these days is actually King Crush for the Hunter.
Right,
really the only one that gets to see a lot of play. Most other units now do rely on the rush mechanic for that board control. The name of the game at Hearthstone has been in recent times control the board. So that's what we're seeing a little bit from this Control Shaman deck tonight.
And we're right on the money with that. I definitely confused charge and rush, so definitely makes sense there. Now there goes the weapon on the side of the rogue. They were return something to the hand there.
Yeah, Shadow Stepping the Janus there is a really easy way for Rogue to refill their board here. So in that regard, it was very wise of St. Clair to hold on to the Earthquake, because it's going to mean that it's much more tricky for Ryerson now to want to commit the second Janus here and go for lethal. Setting up that second Janus has the potential of putting a ton of inescapable threats on board here, but with the Earthquake in hand, it's a quick and easy removal for just about everything that Ryerson has to offer, especially with this bonus spell damage coming out of this Spell Wraith Totem here on the side of St. Clair. That should be about, 9 damage worth of removal on cast here for St. Clair.
Yeah, so they'll be able to clear this right up, and with pass back over the side of St. Clair, we have a Spell Burst card.
That's an interesting take here. I'm wondering how this would synergize with our 5-drop spell in hand. Again, apologies, not super familiar with the new set yet. We're all learning it together, but our 5-drop spell in hand, I believe, is also a Cthulhu spell. So being able to set up a body of Cthulhu on the Diligent Note Taker would mean that we would have access to 2 taunts. There is also the line of Note Takering into the Earthquake, killing off your Note Taker but getting another Earthquake back in hand. Might be the line that St. Clair is considering here. I'll have to see how they approach this play. But Earthquake is pretty much a guarantee looking at this turn with the kind of board that Ryerson has established for themselves. It is looking pretty scary. Number of hefty units on board already.
Now, regardless of how this match ends up going, of course, I want to give props to both teams, considering they've had essentially 2 hours for that box set to come out and build something with it. And a lot of this actually looks like well thought out, well prepared decks, and you only had 2 hours to do that. That's absolutely crazy, and I applaud both teams for that already.
It takes a lot to learn a new set and really understand what that set, the value of that set is, especially in such a minimized time span, less than 24 hours, as we mentioned, to learn all the new cards in this expansion. However, a lot of these decks are very similar to decks that were previously prominent in the meta, with a number of additions, rather. So rather than theory crafting an entire new list from scratch, we're kind of adding in bits and pieces of other lists here. So for St. Clair, I'm actually curious to see what was cut for these Cthulhu cards, but the core of the deck is still fairly similar. The Diligent Note Takers, the Galakron, the Earthquake, the Hagathas Scheme rather. All of these cards were still present in previous iterations of the deck, but now with the addition of the Cthulhu package, you're giving yourself a little bit more utility. And that's really how the crux of deck building is kind of finding these unique ways of adding and changing based on new expansions and how new cards interact with each other.
Now, I'm a little worried here for St. Clair. Whatever is about to come in this next turn is going to hurt unless they drop that Earthquake right here, right now. Because there are a lot of heavy hitters on this board.
Unfortunately for St. Clair now, having held onto that Earthquake, casting it again here won't even clear off the 8/8 unit, which means that you will still be left with a potential 12 damage to face. So it looks like they are hunting for the spell damage. Unfortunately, not going to find it. That 8/8 is going to live. The Earthquake has to come down here. So big hit coming for St. Clair next turn, looking at a minimum 12 damage coming their way with the 4 damage on the rogue weapon, as well as the 8/8 demon currently on the board. I believe that's a new card as well. I could be wrong. Let me take a look at that 8/8 there, get a little bit more insight into that. Takatis, I believe, yes, this is a new card as well from the new expansion, the Corrupt mechanic. When you play a card that is a higher cost value than that card when it is in your hand, it becomes corrupted. Now, obviously, for the rogue, they did not summon a Warlock minion naturally, so this was created by Janus. But if this was in your hand, if you play a card with a higher cost value before you play this card, you will get the corrupted effect instead. So really interesting mechanic for sure with this new expansion. It looks like because the Earthquake isn't going to kill, St. Clair is going to go for an alternative line, dropping the body of Cthulhu instead as a 6/6 blocker. Very dangerous line of play.
Oh, they're definitely playing with fire here. And in fact, they're just going to launch it right back into his hand, so they're going to have a ton of damage coming.
Yeah, that really stinks. Thankfully for St. Clair here, though, with this full kind of commitment to the board now, this Earthquake is going to be generating a lot of value. We're likely looking at top decking into something like a Galakron here. I'm not going to be honest, Anders, I don't really know what gets St. Clair out of this position. The Hagathas Scheme has already been committed. We don't have a response to the 8/8 in hand currently. Devolving Missiles might do it, but that's a gamble and a half for sure. And Ryerson.
That's best case scenario there for them. Holy
First,
smokes.
the RNG breaking the taunt, not having to lose the 4 damage from face. Is that going to be lethal? I believe it will be on 1 health now for St. Clair here.
Oh,
The Eviscerate 4 lethal. That's that rogue burst standard. That's what I was telling you about. It's crazy. It's just crazy.
crazy indeed. The fact that those missiles just lined up perfectly to take out the taunt totem to be able to just send everybody right into the face. Just you hate to see it, but
It's madness.
it
Madness is the Dark Moon.
madness indeed, and perfect
Absolutely.
there for Ryerson.
Yeah, really well played there from Ryerson, kind of knowing how to establish their threats and dodging, in part, the threats presented by St. Clair. There are obviously a ton of removal in that deck. I wasn't able to see the deck list myself, but I'm familiar with similar versions of the archetype. There are lots of removal threats in that deck, and being able to kind of manage and space out your aggressive threats around those removal options is a skill that needs to be complemented. So very well played, obviously, from Ryerson University. Moving into game 2, though, that rogue deck obviously not going to be available to Ryerson anymore, as this is a conquest format, which means you win, you're done. You got to move on to something new. So hopefully, eliminating that very scary aggressive threat from Ryerson means that St. Clair might be able to handle some of the other 2 decks that they brought. I believe it's a warrior and a priest deck coming up from Ryerson as well.
I believe you're correct, yes. So, yeah, that rogue's off the board. And I feel kind of bad here for St. Clair because we didn't get to see the payoff that we were hoping to see from that Shaman deck. They were trying to stay in the game, and in theory, had they were able to live with that 1 HP, they could have Witch's Brewed themselves pretty much right back up there. But even then, you're just using all your mana and just going to take the shot to the face again. So.
Again. Yeah, exactly. I did really want to see that Cthulhu come out, though. I'm kind of upset that we didn't get to see the big boy make an appearance in that game, but hopefully with another run back on this Shaman deck, we might be able to see that again. I'm curious to see what the teams are queuing up for game number 2, however. Might be a different switch for St. Clair because these decks from Ryerson, I believe, will be a little bit slower paced. Warrior and Priest are typically control classes, so I don't expect them to be as fast paced as this rogue deck was, but we'll see with time here.
Yeah, threw their aggression at us right away, and now that that's done, we could be in for some slower games, but we'll have to see as we take a look at the St. Clair decks as well. So that was an additional warrior and a paladin, I do believe, on the side of St. Clair. What do we expect to see from that, especially since we're actually seeing the paladin right here, right now for game number 2?
Awesome. I love some paladin. And I believe that this looks like a pure paladin lineup. And if they were able to get their hands on that new paladin legendary, I can't remember the name right now. I'm sorry, but I do remember what it does. And it's a 8 cost 7/5, where if you have no neutrals in your deck, it gains Rush, Lifesteal, Divine Shield, and something else that's just absolutely bonkers. Really plays into the neutral, or the pure paladin set especially well. So if St. Clair was able to get their hands on that card within this short time span, this pure paladin deck is going to feel monstrous.
All right, I was wondering what you meant by pure paladin, but
There it is.
That's it.
That. There it is. Let's get a close look at that there. High, Exarch, Urel, and Rush, Lifesteal, Taunt, and Divine Shield. There it is if you have no neutral cards in your deck. Good on St. Clair for busting open them packs and grabbing them legends. This card is going to wreak havoc in this deck.
Yeah, but that being an 8-drop, they gotta wait a little bit again, and we'll have to see how much damage that this priest coming out from Ryerson University is going to be able to do, but at least it isn't a rogue. So the tempo, like you were saying, should be, at least in theory, a little bit slower.
Pure Paladin into Priest is a bit of a tricky matchup. Both decks are kind of trying to accomplish similar things. They're both trying to tempo big units and shut down threats on the enemy side. That being said, with this Paladin list, it is more of a wide control deck as opposed to a tall control. So your threats, your ways of responding to big units are typically dependent on you having threats of your own. And Priest here going for a massive tempo play, the Zephyrus on turn 2. That's a move for sure. Usually you want to hold that. I'm a little shocked, if I'm being honest, to see that. Usually Zephyrus being in a singleton list, having the ability to provide you the perfect card for any situation. not usually something you see come out on turn 2, but it looks like it is going to be the Zephyrus into the Wild Growth. So maybe there's a hard ramp play coming out from Priest and they want to drop something next turn that's quite mana dependent. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little shocked by that play.
If a card could help you get the power of the heart of the cards, I guess it would be Zephyrus the Great here, wishing for that perfect card. Yeah, and like you're saying, kind of odd to see it come out rather early. That we'll have to see now. We can hop on to Ryerson's side once again. What do we?
This Goody 2 Shields coming out from St. Clair is a really scary threat to drop on turn 3, especially with the coin in hand. It's a really easy way of controlling the board. You can trade into the enemy board, immediately pop a spell, get that Divine Shield back again, and a Divine Shielded 4-drop unit, or a 4 damage unit rather, is a pretty significant threat, especially when combined with some of the big buffs that this St. Clair deck has to offer, like the Pharaoh's Blessing, which is in hand, the 6-drop spell there. But coming from the side of the Priest here, I'm really not sure what to expect from the Singleton deck. I believe the card that was previously used was a new card from the expansion, being able to discover a spell here for the Priest. But now here for St. Clair, the line of play is fairly linear. Going into the Lightforged Zealot makes a lot of sense. You can trade into the Zephyrus here with the Divine Shield, or even with the weapon if you prefer, and get some nice damage down onto that Priest. Get some poke in now, and make it hard for them to recover with only two points worth of healing a turn.
Yeah, of course. The Priest doesn't mind a little bit of chip damage, but 4 is just a little bit more, especially if it's coming from multiple sources. Now, St. Clair threw all their mana. It's just a matter of time before they get on the attack here. Sure enough, just going to go right to the face. Going to leave that Zephyr on the board.
Yeah, interesting choice there from St. Clair. I don't hate the call. I understand kind of the rationale behind it, obviously wanting to leave your big units on board and saying, you know what, Ryerson, if you want to deal with my 4-2, you got to do something about it. I'm not going to spoon feed it to you. It looked like they were considering trading the Goody 2 Shields in and kind of burning the coin just to trigger the spell burst, but I applaud their patience there because with the Pharaoh's Blessing in hand for the following turn, you don't want to be wasting a valuable resource like that.
Makes sense. Now we have Kronks on board, of course. Pretty strong 6/6 up on the board. We do have Zealot back in the hand as well. What am I looking at here?
There's a couple lines of play here. I don't hate trading into the 6/6 and using the Consecration just to clear it. It looks like the Priest deck is really trying to tempo this Galakron on 7 after playing the Kronks the previous turn, really trying to get that generated value moving. But it looks like St. Clair is considering the Argent Braggart here instead to make a 6/6 of their own. Also a pretty decent line of play here. You can double trade here with the weapon into the Consecration, so it does end up coming out there. Perfect play there from St. Clair. Clear off that board, make a 6/6 for yourself first, take what's theirs and make it your own. And threatening now 16 damage, or 16 health rather, for Ryerson now, moving into turn 7. Looking like it's going to be a Galakron turn, but this is a pretty scary board here from St. Clair.
Okay, where's your healing holy crap button? Because right now, like, St. Clair definitely in the driver's seat. Whether it be on the board, they have some pretty decently sized minions on the board as well. Nothing too crazy, but still way more than what they have. Sure enough, you were mentioning Galakron. It looks like he is going to come out to play right here, right now, and take out the 6/6.
Tough break. The 50-50 dice roll on the Galakron does hit pretty heavy for Ryerson here in this situation. It is worth noting, however, I don't know what kind of healing is available to Ryerson in this deck. Obviously, I haven't had the chance to see the deck list for myself, but switching to Galakron means that your hero power has changed. There is no more 2 health healing per turn anymore for the side of the Priest. So they're looking to out-tempo hard in this situation. St. Clair happy to just go wide, establish a number of threats. The Lightforged Zealot into the tap, into the 4-2 push with the Goody 2 Shields. Ryerson not looking too great here on this turn 8.
Goody 2 Shields. That is a interesting name for the minion nonetheless. And we're seeing... Oh, we have, with that Cthulhu back up and getting ready as well. And well, okay, looks like they're going to be able to just completely clear the board, all the spells lined up, but St. Clair might have an answer ready and waiting.
We've got the Lightforged Crusader coming out here on turn 7. It is worth noting that since it adds 5 cards to hand and St. Clair will not have the mana to play any of the cards that they have drawn, they are going to burn something from their deck. That being said, they've already drawn their legendary. I assume that whatever they're planning on burning isn't going to hurt them too much So tempoing out this 7/7 seems like a pretty strong play to me. I'm a fan. Let's get this Light Force Crusader going.
Yeah, it's a little bit scary now. I think if you're in the Ryerson side of things, with 12 health left, that's not much wiggle room, and they can't even heal anymore. Right? It's all about minions now, so they couldn't
Not only
make it
can
work.
they not heal, they're a singleton deck.
Right.
And they're raised getting their own face. So they're really not putting themselves in the best position here. They're taking a ton of damage and they don't really have a way of reverting that damage. They're basically relying on, by the grace of God, I guess, getting some control over this board here and trying to establish themselves a little bit better in this board state, because right now things are really not looking great. But lo and behold, it is a Zephyrus coming off the top with that raised dead there. It's going to be a great draw here for it. The Shadow Word Death from the Zephyrus means no more Light Forge Crusader. The Hand of a Doll gets burned, and now St. Clair's got a ton of options. It's going to be tricky to figure out how they want to approach this. Might just be the 8-drop here to clear off this 4/7 taunt, but I assume we've got a number of other options here. We might not want to commit into that legendary just yet. Lots we can do here with the St. Clair hand.
Gosh, I was completely clutched there for the side of Ryerson University. Everything just lined up right, being able to get the Shadow Word Death as well to take down the 7/7. From what looked like it to be an absolutely devastating spot for like St. Clair to be able to put the pressure on, has now completely flipped. But like you're saying, there is still plenty of resources here in St. Clair's hand. Just a matter of seeing what they can pull off here with this.
Yeah, for Ryerson here, that play was a really smart play. You only having a certain number of units in the graveyard, it's pretty likely you're going to hit the Zephyrus. I actually believe it may have been the only one. I can't remember exactly, but it was a pretty guaranteed shot that you're going to hit Zephyrus there. And top decking into their raised dead, or rather that Shadow Word Death, is a pretty solid move there. But because it is a singleton deck, it means that you are really fishing for responses. And if you don't have ways of just yoinking another Zephyrus out of your graveyard, it's going to be hard to find those responses as the game goes on. And St. Clair, knowing this, is working whatever they can to establish as many threats on the board as possible. We've now got 2 7/7s threatening the board that hide Priestess Allura, followed by another Argent Braggart as well. With a number of resources left in hand, this is a very scary situation for Ryerson still. But the Soul Mirror off the Discover, oh my god. It just doesn't stop, Danny.
Gosh, they may not be necessarily doing damage, but they have an answer for every minion. It feels like that St. Clair is throwing onto the board. And it's only a matter of time before that does turn into damage.
I hate Priest Danners. I absolutely hate it. It just feels like it doesn't matter how hard you work or how much pressure you put down. It's just there's always something coming at you. The Fishy Flyer main deck. Yes, Ryerson. Love to see that. The 4/3, not a generated card. They put that in their deck themselves, and I love them for it. It is actually a fairly decent rush minion because it gives you an additional rush minion after it dies, but it's such a goofy card. I just love seeing it.
Gotta love the Murlocs.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of Murloc deck. I petitioned strongly for a Shaman Murloc deck, but I was outvoted. Apparently I'm trolling because I want to play Murloc? I don't know. It's kind of sad.
No, I feel like I would probably be trolling if I tried to make that too. Like it, I felt like it was always like a for fun style of deck, but we never know. Of course, I'm just a production guy. I'm not the player himself, but now we do have the possibility of discovering a card. It looks like that is a pretty big Drake on the left.
We're gonna find your secret legend account one of these days, Dan. I know you're hiding it from us, but we'll find it one day. But looking at this board state here for Ryerson, we've got a number of threats established there as well, and a number of resources left in hand. Unfortunately, because it is a Saints Gaming cast, we don't have access to the hand of Ryerson, but with the ability to tap and generate a random priest minion here with this Galakron passive, it is going to be non-stop threats from here on out for Ryerson University. And St. Clair with a number of threats of their own, looking like it could be a long game, lots of trades back and forth. But it's going to be tricky for Ryerson to out-tempo some of these very scary threats on the side of St. Clair. There's a 6-drop weapon in hand for St. Clair that I don't believe I've seen before. Looks kind of like a mushroom. What is that? The Hammer of Naru. Okay, not a mushroom. A hammer. That's a... Oh, okay. Well, definitely not a mushroom, but that is a very scary weapon. Something that's 6/6 with taunt, giving you 3 damage as well. That's pretty significant. I'm a fan of that.
And when do they pop it, however? Because now starting to get into a bit of a similar situation that we saw in the last game, where the board is starting to get absolutely devastating from the side of Ryerson. And that was a lot of damage just in one turn, and we were essentially full health. Now we're down to 18. If only there was a way to... Can a paladin just summon a pyroblast real quick? If only that was possible. But
I don't believe that this deck is running pyromancers, obviously, because oh, you said pyroblast. You know what?
I'm looking for the 10.
Yeah, we're looking for the face damage lethal. Definitely not. Unfortunately,
Speaking
there
of
are a number of
trolling.
iterations that run. Yeah, for sure. There are a number of iterations of Paladin decks that do run the Wild Pyromancer, because that does provide some useful utility in clearing off the board. But because this is a pure Paladin deck, that means that every card in the main deck is a naturally Paladin card. So there will not be any shenanigans. There will be no Pyroblast lethals here coming out of this Paladin deck. It is fairly straightforward.
Aw.
Looking at that Libram of Justice in hand, though, for St. Clair is looking like it may be their only way out of this situation. Just Cthulhu just straight up destroy a unit. That is repulsive.
Even through Divine Shield.
That's just yucky. Look at it go. It's just, you had an 8/8 and now it's gone, and you're pushing 13 damage face plus whatever you have in hand. This is real spooky.
And Ryerson getting crafty is what we like to see, though. But we gotta see now if Saints can somehow turn us around after completely eating this damage to the face momentarily, more than likely.
I mean, I'm thinking about, like, I'm just running card names in my head. And, with a 7/8 Shield of Galakron coming out now too, like, man, it's just not looking good. I honestly don't know how we get out of this. I think the only response to this was Libram of Justice into Consecration. It looks like the Legendary is going to have to come down. It's now or never. We've got 7 damage worth of lifesteal here into the hand of Adult as well for the added 2 healing. Might be able to save us in this situation, take off that 7/8. Yeah, I don't know. This is real scary. They're not dead yet, but it's not looking too great either.
Yeah, they bought themselves a little bit of time, but it's still extremely foolish to think they're feeling comfortable in any sense of the word. Of course, still having to deal with that rather beefy 4/7, but at least if they do opt to send their minion into it, they'll at least be able to get some health back, top themselves off depending on how this turn goes. But with how this game has been going the past 2 games, what on earth is Ryerson going to pull to just completely delete this minion?
See the renew onto face there. Obviously, Ryerson has shown that they're not scared of taking face damage. So the renew to face there was definitely a kind of a gamble play there. They're looking to discover a way of removing this 9/7 safely without risking their board here. But the great, the fishy flyer should mean that with a rush unit responding now into the board, should be able to clear off this 9/3 without having to sacrifice too much of your current board, which means that the rest of your units can go face. So it's a very intelligent play from Ryerson, not really giving up the tempo there. But now with the Psycho Pump as well onto the Fishy Flyer, oh my gosh, this board just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Oh no, the Murlocs have come out to play and they are taking no prisoners. Now, this is an absolutely disgusting board. What on earth can we fire through? Fire here to even get anything to happen.
Now, I'm trying to remember. I believe the Raised Dead came out after St. Clair traded into Kronks. And if that's the case, it means that there is another Kronks in hand for Ryerson. Kronks offers a number of different kind of options for finding a lethal play. You can either do 5 damage to the enemy face, make an 8/8 dragon, buff everything by 2, or deal 5 to the entire to all the units on board and completely reset the board. But for Ryerson right now, with such a scary wide board here, being able to tempo a Kronks and buff your entire board by 2/2, you trade in one of your little minions here, like the Disciple of Galakron on the left there for Ryerson. You drop the Kronks, and everything now becomes a scary threat. And that's spooky, for sure.
Oh, I'm nervous for this turn. We'll have to see what happens. It looks like that's exactly what they're going to do. Get rid of the shield, and now it's just a matter of... Sure enough, there it is. Kronks once again. And there it is.
And look at this board.
Just brute force it.
like just devastating. I was trying to come up with a catchy little something quick off the top there, but it's too overwhelming to even just put it into words. Like, look at these units. Everything's beefy.
Okay, sometimes you just have to say how it is, and it's absolutely brutal. As there are so many buffed up minions here. Some of them even if they trade it away, just throw it back into the hand or something like that. Like, these Murlocs are getting their money's worth. And now with no taunt minions on the board on the side of St. Clair, this is about to hurt like hell.
If I'm counting that right, yeah, they just found. There it is. Oh, it hurts. It hurts to watch Priest win. I hate it. I hate it so much. It's just everything you do is just there's a response to it. There's a nothing feels good playing into Priest. Not at all.
Like playing a proper Shadow Priest in the WoW arena, it just feels like you can't do anything, and that's exactly what happened there as well. They gave you the glimpse of hope down to 9 HP, like, oh, you have us on the ropes here. Haha, nope. Just completely denying them.
I cannot believe you just invoked the name of Shadow Priest in 2020. You're such a I love that. You don't see it anymore, but you really should. It's so much fun. This was not fun. I can tell St. Clair was not having any fun.
That was frustrating, it looks like.
Brutal. It was just so much pressure. Like the board state, the way that you can kind of reclaim board on Priest, just by basically just throwing down threats nonstop, pressing literal delete buttons to remove your enemy threats. Like, oh, it's just so frustrating. So well played from Ryerson at being annoying, I guess. Can we say that? You did a good job.
They played it properly, which in terms of Priest is annoying. But we're going into game number 3. Now, we may have been annoyed a bit at some of the spells and at some of the healing, I guess. Well, not even necessarily healing, but some of the minions there. But how about going through armor? Game number 3 is now underway in a moment.
Stop. You're already triggering me, and the game hasn't even started. We go from Priest to Warrior. The amount of just effective health from these Priest and Warrior decks are just disgusting. Like, they just outlast everything. Got a pretty decent start here from St. Clair, though, with the first day of school, tempoing into the Imprisoned Sun Guild. That is going to be a pretty scary threat there on turn 3 with the McGurgle in hand. Means a pretty decent curve here for St. Clair. I'm not sure what type of warrior deck this is for Ryerson. In the previous meta, there were a number of viable warrior archetypes. Typically, most warrior decks would run the Wrench Caliber and push like a bomb-based kind of win con. But there have been a number of control-type decks that have kind of shown forth in the meta here. Going into turn 3 on Warrior, though, with a bunch of one-drop units means a pretty saucy whirlwind coming up here for the Warrior, but with a number of threats on this side of St. Clair as well. Looking like it could be a back-and-forth game for sure already.
Yeah, here I am thinking, it's like, oh wow, this board control off the start is insane, but oh yeah, Whirlwind. Right, that's a thing. So,
it's another delete one.
Well, with all these little 1/1 or 1/2/1 minions, rather, it definitely makes sense. Being able to get rid of some of these Divine Shields as well might be valuable. We'll have to see when and if that does come out. It's only a matter of time, though. That's one way to do it.
That's an interesting minefield. Randomly deal 5 damage. That's even better than Whirlwind. They took out the McGurgle there and only left the 1/1 and the Goody 2 shields as well. There's not going to be an easy way to reset the shield. It looks like St. Clair is considering just playing the Consecration outright and resetting that Divine Shield. I don't hate that line of play. It kind of depends on what this Warrior deck is all about, though. It looks like a fairly control-heavy list, in which case that Consecration may not be providing too much value for you later down the line. They are just going to go for the safe route, playing out the Reinforce here, getting that 1/1 unit down onto the board and holding onto the resources for later. Probably a smart move.
Now we've got the Mummy, of course, has Rush, so it's going to just dive right in, take advantage of the fact that that Goody 2 Shields does not have a shield. Get rid of it, and looks like it's a rebirth itself and go again even, so pretty well clearing the board. So now St. Clair with the little poke for a counterattack after getting this top minion.
the Restless Mummy there, it was wiser of St. Clair not to play the Consecration because, as we saw, the way that that card works is because it is both Reborn and Rush. When you play it from hand, it rushes, and when it revives, it rushes again. So you basically get 6 damage worth of removal as long as it dies on its first attack there. So even if you had established the Divine Shield onto the Goody 2 shields, it'll just hit it again, and you're left with 2 1/1s instead. So definitely some good patience from St. Clair and not committing that response, because it would have felt pretty bad to play it like that and then just lose your board anyways. So tempoing here into the Altar of Truth Seeker on turn 5 is a very smart play. We've got some really good tempo plays lined up for St. Clair, getting our Librams reduced already. But that Coerce, man, it's just these delete cards.
Gosh, all the delete buttons coming out here against St. Clair. The board going to be cleared once again. And very similarly to how that Priest deck was acting, it's as of right now, this Warrior deck just seems to have an answer for absolutely everything St. Clair is throwing at him. However, Divine Shield Taunt here now for St. Clair, this Devout Pupil coming out.
Yeah, it's just these control archetypes with the ability to just press a button and watch the enemy board explode. Like, I just feel like every time I play against one of these decks, the other person's just sitting behind their computer just like laughing at me. Like there's no kindness. There's no friendly competition at stake here. It's just watch your board disappear. It's just there's no other way of looking at it.
He's just sitting there behind his computer menacingly with an answer for every minion.
I'm shedding hairs. I'm mauling from the caster's desk. It's just awful.
Well, that Blade Storm was able to take one down, but we did happen to have another pupil on board this time alongside the Attendant as well. And
we have the Legendary in hand as well. Looking to see that come out on turn 8 potentially. Obviously wanting to take advantage of the Rush keyword there. It is a pretty strong removal card. You don't really want to tempo it, especially into something like Warrior, which can just brawl and watch you cry as you get no value out of this card. So definitely going to be waiting for a more optimal time to play it. That being said, a 7/5 is never a bad unit to throw down onto the board. That's a pretty scary threat.
I mean, I'd be so scared that they just have an answer for it right away. And sure enough,
sure.
Gonna start going, that's Cthulhu again in this deck as well, eh? Jeez, answer for everything coming out here once again. Ryerson just not letting St. Clair play the game.
Yeah, it seems like this Cthulhu is going to be a pretty prominent card in this meta. It looks like just about nearly any deck that can run it will run it. It is very scary, obviously, being able to deal 30 damage to the enemy face. When Cthulhu, when the Whispers of the Old Gods was the primary meta, Cthulhu was just about in every deck, nearly every single archetype, because of how strong it was. And now here again, with the return of Cthulhu with Madness of the Darkmoon Fair, it looks like we're going to be seeing some similar kind of trends as well. So St. Clair here, having the 8-drop available but not wanting to play it, and I completely understand why. You don't want to play it and then just watch it just die immediately to another Blade Storm or another Coerce. Like, that would just feel awful. But the rest of your hand is looking pretty lackluster as far as alternative lines of play.
Oh, they're gonna in fact go for it, but is the board lava? We'll have to see momentarily. See how long this Yrel can actually stay on the board. Oh no.
The top deck Mauve Cthulhu. God dang it, Danny. They just pulled that off the top of the deck. They literally just drew into that. I needed like a summer vacation, like 2 weeks, all paid, all expenses paid in Hawaii to get over this game. Like this hurts.
And I was saying that Zephyr was the heart of the card, so apparently he carried over into this game too with that top deck. But yeah, St. Clair's in a rough spot.
Yeah, I mean, it's turn 9 and you're pushing 2-1s and 1-1s. Like, this just sucks. With a risky skipper package as well. Gosh, this Warrior list is just brutal. The Blood Boil Brute coming down as well. Interesting to see that card main decked. It is a pretty strong rush minion. You don't often see it, though. But in this iteration of this deck, obviously, a really nice way of clearing off this board here. And with that risky skipper knocking down those 1 health units as well, not a whole lot of options left for St. Clair here. You've got an Altar Truth Seeker into an Argent Braggart, I guess. Like, I don't really know how else you approach this.
Definitely a weird spot overall, and I'm feeling bad here for St. Clair. I'm worried that we're not going to be able to see any of their the win conditions get fulfilled here with the decks. Of course, it being absolutely crazy that this expansion came out 2 hours ago, and everybody really grinded out hard to make sure they had a deck ready for tonight. But that being said, this is still not done just yet. St. Clair still has all of their health, but a lot of their big hitters just seem to keep getting deleted off the board, and I can't help but be discouraged seeing that.
Yeah, St. Clair choosing not to play the Spirit Jailer here likely means that they're playing around Brawl. I can't really foresee any other threat that they may be concerned about. I might be missing something, but you don't want to overfill your board with low health units and big health units at the same time into Warrior, because if they press that Brawl button, you're just increasing the odds that it's going to whiff on your side here. But now with the Galakrond, the Unbreakable, coming out for the Warrior, that's a fat 5 armor bonus as well as a plus 4/4 to whatever unit you pull off the top. That's going to be an easy shield slam setup, pushing 5 to face with the 1 trade in to the 1/1 there. It's a full board clear for Ryerson and a big smack to St. Clair's face here. We do have the Libram of Justice Consecration combo, but you don't want to blow that on a board like this. You got to hold on to that for later. So really just looking for whatever you can pull off the top to save you here. It's just, these top decks are just not coming in clutch here for St. Clair yet.
It feels like Ryerson have been basically snowballing since game 1 with how this has been going, and it just has not stopped ever since, always having an answer of some sort. But now this snowball is getting big enough to the point where Nunu would be proud. But we'll have to see if they actually can shut this down, even for a second, considering they're going to be taking at least 6 damage if they have no answer.
It's honestly a really fair point. It kind of felt like from game 1 up until here, it's just like the plays are getting better, the game sense is getting smarter, and the top decks are getting, holy moly, 10 times more. Like everything is just coming up Ryerson in this series here. Really looking forward to seeing a St. Clair win tonight. I don't want my first Hearthstone cast to be a full sweep on their side. This deck does have a lot of options, and I'm hoping they can find them, but right now the heart of the cards is not on their side.
Nope, seems to be sitting right there behind the players at Ryerson today anyway. But we'll have to see Ryerson making their move once again, and sure enough, that's going to make things even more difficult. Another beefy minion that's only going to make Galakrond even beefier, if I recall correctly.
That Armorsmith Risky Skipper combo is pretty classic. You play down the Risky Skipper and you follow up with the Armorsmith, and every damage you deal to your own units counts as armor for you, so you're kind of getting something back for damaging your own units in a way. It looks like the Justice Consecration combo is going to have to come down now. It's now or never. Likely going to go into an Argent Braggart first, though, to get ourselves a 5/7 before we commit that response here. But it's now or never for St. Clair.
Yep, sure enough, and actually Libram going to come out as well, like you were saying. Consecration right around the corner. Can at least slow this down for a little bit. Have to see.
Looking like they're going to tap here and hold again the Spirit Jailer in hand. You don't want to influence the Brawl too much. That being said, I'd be quite shocked if Ryerson commits a Brawl on a board state like this, but I've been wrong before. And here comes the big boy. That's the Deathwing. As soon as the Justice Consecration combo goes down, there comes the 12/6 Demon from Hell, here to wreak havoc on your board and your face as well.
The big guy himself, Deathwing, making an appearance here in this match.
Oh no. Danners, what are we going to do?
Oh, they just dead draw, didn't they?
It's just you're gonna buff a 1/3 to a 2/4 and then watch it die? Like, oh god, this is just brutal. Card games, folks. I don't know what else to say about it. It's just, that's so rough.
I mean, you can prepare all day for the matchup, but sometimes it just doesn't go your way. You can prepare on the track as much as possible. You can have the best deck, you can have the best card, but could sometimes get taken out on lap 1. And right from game 1, it seems like that's exactly what happened to St. Clair. Just getting taken out at every opportunity. And they're completely gassed now.
The only way we get out of this situation is Lady Liadrin pulls us into a Libram of Justice so we can play our second Consecration. Like, that's the only situation. And even that, there's the Libram. So Okay, so that's going good, but we still don't have a way of protecting ourselves from the 3 damage that's going to hit us in the face. This is just, it's a clean sweep for Ryerson. We'll commit the combo here just out of kindness, I guess, but honestly, you might as well just concede. The game is kind of doomed at this point. They're going to go for it anyways, just to flex on them one time with the top deck here, but there's nothing really you can do with 1 health remaining, no taunts left on board, and a guaranteed 3 damage coming off the top here for Ryerson's Galakron. It's going to be a 3-0 set for Ryerson University tonight on this opening day of Dark Moon Fair.
Well, they always say that Dark Moon Fair has some of the wackiest events and such, and what is this?
A sticky finger warlock. That's so... God.
Oh my goodness.
That's just salt on the wound, Danners. Salt in the wounds.
I mean, I don't like laughing at defeat, but I'll give Ryerson credit. That was quite humorous, but holy smokes. I mean, yeah, Dark Moon Fair showing its tricks and craziness right off the start. Ryerson absolutely capitalizing, building some extremely hard to deal with aggression with the Rogue. And then those last two, the Priest and the Warrior, just constant control. No matter what we put down, it was basically gone the next turn. Absolutely fantastic job from Ryerson, playing their cards right. Sometimes a little bit of RNG went in their favor, but even in general, it just felt like they were the better team today. May have a little support, but that's it.
No, absolutely. And I mean, it is obviously card games. There's always that risk of, not drawing the cards you need, or the other person always drawing everything that they need. And, there's not really a whole lot you can do about that, but there is a fair amount of skill that comes into this game, and understanding the level of threats that you can put onto the board, and understanding what threats your opponent has and knowing how to respond to them. I think Ryerson did that exceptionally well, snapping that Deathwing down as soon as the Justice Consecration combo went down. Like, that's like a choreographed play because of the way that they held it. I believe they were holding it in hand for a number of turns before they did that. So understanding like what you need to watch out for before you do it. So very well played from the side of Ryerson. But for St. Clair, it's a tough loss tonight. Definitely.
Finished off by the sticky fingers.
Yeah, I mean, that's just disrespectful. Somebody's got to have a talking to Ryerson after this. That's just, oh God, can't do that to us, man. We're watching it live, for Christ's sake. Like, that's just.
That's one of those matches. Like, I can't believe you've done this. High five. Like It's like, okay, that was kind of cool. That was not insulting, but disrespectful. But I love it. But
the reason it hurts so much is because they already had the lethal with the hero power. They just did it just to show you that they could do it, And that's just, oh God, whatever. I mean, really well played either way. Really good series for sure. And these new Cthulhu cards are looking real interesting. It's too bad we didn't get to see too much else from the new set. Obviously, we did get to see the Pure Paladin Legendary. Didn't do a whole lot for us tonight, but that doesn't discredit the power of that card. It looked like a very strong card. We saw it come out, I believe, with the Hand of Adult on top. It came out as a 9/7 with Lifesteal and Taunt, Divine Shield and Rush. Like, you clear through a unit and you've still got a 9 damage unit with Lifesteal left. Like, that's pretty scary. So definitely a strong card to add to your Pure Paladin decks if you are a Pure Paladin player. Definitely peep that card. Lots of threats there available now with this new set.
Yeah, but with that, like, OPSE Hearthstone playoffs are not quite here just yet. We still have a couple more matches. For Hearthstone specifically, I believe it is on next Wednesday. We get to go up against Fanshawe. But in regards to some additional matches that are coming up next here on the Saints Gaming CA channel, let's quickly take a look, why don't we? And there is a lot of Rocket League, to say the least. But on Wednesday, there is... so tomorrow, 6 o'clock, OPSE League of Legends continues, this time up against the University of Ottawa. I'm trying to get confirmation if this is the team that took us out prior in the season. Or, actually, no, that's University of Ottawa, like, in the States or something like that. So this is a different team. I'm looking forward to seeing this matchup. I think it'll be the first time this season we get to see that. So, yeah, tomorrow at 6 o'clock. I think you're joining me for that too, right?
Absolutely, sir. I will be here as well alongside Yerif from the League of Legends Club team. We will be casting that together tomorrow night at 6 p.m., so make sure you tune into that.
Awesome, awesome. And then, of course, we see a lot of Rocket League here, so let me explain. We have 2 leagues of playoffs starting at the exact same time. So, Thursday, Play versus the final regular season match for that. It's happening at 8 o'clock. Then on Saturday, it's going to be a busy day for myself. I know that for sure. Saturday at 4 p.m., we get started with the playoff bracket for Play versus. Later on in that day as well, there is the playoffs for Rocket League UCEA. And if time allows, that's also the Call of Duty Cold War season opener for TESPA. So there is so much happening Saturday. I'm hoping I don't have to miss any of it, but we're going to have to see because some of these things are overlapping. Of course, match times always subject, or matches in the times always subject to change. Depending on how playoffs go, Sunday will also have Play versus and UCEA playoff Rocket League, and then similar situation where Call of Duty could be streamed as well, depending on what happens. There's so many matches all around the same time, it's going to get nuts. But this is what I like to see. The end of the season getting chaotic, but it's definitely exciting. Playoff time is always a fantastic time, and looking forward to these matches, especially for tomorrow. We've got, of course, League of Legends and University of Ottawa, so we'll have to see how that one goes.
I'm super excited to cast League of Legends, and I'm very excited for a long week of car soccer. I haven't played the game myself, played a couple of the tutorials, but definitely going to peep in those streams and learn myself a little bit more of that strategy. So if you're interested in learning more about Rocket League, this is a great week for you. Make sure you stop by the Saints Gaming channel all week to catch some more Rocket League action.
Absolutely. And then, of course, it wasn't on that graphic, but of course, Hearthstone returns on the 25th on Wednesday. And with that, that's just about it for now. So, of course, I do want to give a big thank you to the sponsors that do make this all possible. Of course, St. Clair College itself, Zuckman School of Business and IT, EC Outlet, Tim Hortons, the St. Clair SRC, and the St. Clair College Alumni Association. Thank you for making this all possible here. It's a pleasure constantly being able to broadcast these matches, and without you guys, it wouldn't be possible. So thank you very much.
We love having the opportunity to host fun and interactive streams here on the Saints Gaming channel, and we always appreciate your support. Make sure to not only drop us a follow here on the Saints Gaming Twitch channel, but also on Twitter at Saints Gaming CA, and make sure you keep up with whatever's happening here. I'm going to be on the caster's desk tomorrow night, and you'll be sure to see me next week as well, alongside Mr. Danners. We're looking forward to seeing you all next time.
Have a good night, everybody.